Welcome to Tombstone Tuesdays. This is a weekly streaming show about historic cemeteries and the people who love exploring them. In case you're new here, I am Tui Snider, and I write books, I give talks, and I do a lot of research. Now, I'm really curious if anyone's here today. Oh, I do see we do have some people viewing. All right, not just talking to myself, which is always fun. Of course, I could be talking to someone who's watching the replay, so I get you there. Now, you might be wondering, hey, the show is called Tombstone Tuesdays. Today is a Wednesday. What the heck is going on? Well, I have to tell you, yesterday I got my first COVID vaccination shot. I got the Pfizer one, and I got it, and I'm just showing you this picture because they did it at the Texas Motor Speedway, which is just a great place to get. I mean, what a great use of the motor. You know, I'm not a big NASCAR fan. I guess it's great for that too, but they had 16 lanes going. You just drove up, you showed them a QR code. How fancy is that? They're like, oh, are you Tui? I'm like, yes, I am. And then, you know, go through it. That's the nice man who gave me a jab, totally painless. Oh, we got some people here. Whoop, whoop. Paul in Maine, I hope your arm is not sore. You know what? If I raise it up, it feels a little bruised, but that's it. I am so surprised. It does not hurt that bad. I did not get, I think this guy who didn't even feel it. It was like the most painless shot I've ever had. It was great. Well, I'm excited. Whoop, whoop. Oh, hey, hi, glad you could make it, Green Man. Whoop, whoop. Everybody say hello. Ken, hi guys. You know, you had so much snow there in Colorado, and I wonder if you've seen any moose yet. I just learned from Ken the other day that they have moose in Colorado. I did not know that. Now we got Debbie up in Canada. How you doing, Debbie? Nice to see you. Thank you for coming. I hope everybody can get their shots soon. It sure is a relief. I mean, I was kind of giddy yesterday. So anyway, I gotta say something interesting. I just realized that this is episode number 10. This is episode number 10, and our special guest today is going to be Loren Rhoads, and I know a lot of you know who she is because I got quite a response when I mentioned to my newsletter who I was having today. But I'm going to tease y'all just a little bit because, you know, we gotta warm up and have our opening segment before I bring her on. Another thing I wanted to mention, because I've been getting feedback and input from you guys, is that I'm in the process of rebranding my channel. When I first made this YouTube channel, like I watched the videos about how you're supposed to do it, and they were like, niche down to a tight little subject, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. You know, after having our guest last week, Janice Oberding, who she writes true crime, cemeteries, spooky stuff, whatever she wants, history, quirky history. And I'm like, I do that too. Why niche down? I don't care if I'm doing it wrong, whatever. I am now Tui Snider's offbeat and overlooked on here, and that's what we're going to do. Now, let's see. Some people are saying some stuff. I wish they would give our shots that way. Oh, you're getting yours on Sunday? Oh, that's awesome. I'm so happy, Debbie. I know, I think that's a great use for all the racetracks. They should do more of those. I know, happy St. Patrick's Day. I'll be talking about that a little more soon. I got some stuff to say, and it relates to cemeteries a bit. First off, I want to say, in case you missed it, I did do a video about International Women's Day, the tragic history, the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, and whether you are a man or a woman, this is such important history. Everybody should know this. On a lighter note, I did another one about the Alamo cat graves because there are some feline friends who have patrolled the Alamo over the years. And of course, if you are interested in me at all, have you signed up for my newsletter yet? It comes out every Sunday. I try to keep it to the point and concise, but I share anything fun going on. Sometimes I have things to give away. Most times I don't really, but I have information and this or that. And if you are interested in me, check it out. And when you sign up for it, you get my free little booklet that will tell you the many means of hands in historic cemeteries. That's a good place to start when you are learning about cemetery symbols. So, I have to share something that I did that was fun. this last week. I had a meeting, a Zoom tea party with members of the Afternoon Tea League, of which I am now a new member. I'm wearing my everyday Afternoon Tea League pin today. Now, as you can see, they're much better dressed than I am, so I need to up my game. In other words, this is an excuse to buy or make some cool Victorian Edwardian clothes. So I had a blast with Ken and Patty and Priscilla. That was really fun. And of course, every week I always have a goofy sponsor that I find. I find some ad in my historic research and I share it. And this one just cracks me up. I've actually seen ads for a product called 666 quite a few times. It always catches my eye because what? I mean, who would name a product 666 today? There would probably be some backlash. But, 100 years ago, whatever, you would see these. Also, just the thought of seeing a product for treating malaria, that's not a very, not a real huge market these days, thank goodness, in America. So it's just something to think about. Of course, I have to say that the real supporters, the real sponsors are my Patreon supporters. So that would be Angel, Scott, Ghost Cat, Ian, Jessica, Anne, Envy, Jay, Ken, Patty, Sarah, Julie, Margaret, Hugh, Mikhail, Naomi, Tim, Pete, Sarah, Rachel, and the other Tui in the world. There are at least two of us. Beware. So thanks, you guys. I really appreciate your support. And of course, a lot of you guys, some of you may know that I do, if you subscribe at a certain level, I send you a postcard every month. And the one I just sent had a really strange story attached to it, so I'll probably do a video about it later, about a woman who would commune inside a tomb with her loved ones. Now let me just scan here and see who else has showed up. We have Sandra. Hi Sandra, thanks for coming. It's got some Canadians in the house. Yeah, Wade. Oh, great to see you. Howdy, howdy. Oh yeah, hey, oh good, 3 virtual hugs. Thank you, I need an extra one since I got that shot. I appreciate it. All right. Now, I always have a photo of the week, cemetery photo of the week, and this one comes from past show guest David M. Haben. He sends me some really cool photos, and if you saw the show with him on, you know that he travels for work, and in his spare time with all this travel, he checks out all the cool cemeteries wherever he goes. And I just thought this was interesting. As you can tell, it was a little hard for him to get this photo because he was looking inside a mausoleum. And you know how that is when you're peeking inside a mausoleum and it's closed and you're trying to get a picture of the nice stained glass in there. It's hard to get. But here you see a leprechaun and there's a raccoon, which I find interesting. It looks like I don't know, I think a blue jay even in there as well. But I wanted to point out, my point in bringing this up was the leprechaun and that shamrock. And I just wanted to say to everybody, of course, happy St. Patrick's Day. And first off, I want to know, I hope you all are wearing green. I mean, look, I'm wearing a lot of green. I've even got some green nail polish in there somewhere. So, pinch yourselves if you're not wearing green. Or is that a tradition that you follow or followed? I remember that being a big deal at school when I was a kid. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, that do any of you eat corned beef and cabbage today? Because my brother-in-law lives in New York. He lives on Long Island, and he's quite a cook. And one year, a few years ago, I was up and my husband and I were there for St. Patrick's Day, and he made, oh my gosh, it was so tasty. We had corned beef and cabbage. It was like the yummiest thing that was just great. I thought, wow, what a great tradition. I don't know, I grew up on the West Coast. I just had to worry about getting pinched. We didn't do that. Now, my other question, well, let me see if anyone answered that. Oh, wearing green. Okay, good. Good, you're wearing green. This is important. Glad to know it. You're off the hook. Now, my other question I have for you, I'm just curious if you know the difference between a shamrock and a 4-leaf clover, because this is something that a lot of us, especially us Americans, we get wrong. We kind of conflate them and just, hey, this shamrock and the 4-leaf clover are the same thing. But let me tell you, they are not. I Here, I guess I better move my banner so you can see what's going on. I got this graphic. This is copyright from Pride of the Irish, and they wanted to let us know, in fact, that a shamrock only has 3 leaves, and a 4-leaf clover has 4. Now, a shamrock is one of the symbols of Ireland. It's, you know, how England has their rose and Scotland has a thistle. It is one of their national symbols, and I think they get a little irritated and roll their eyes at us when we, say Happy St. Patrick's Day and then we show a picture of a 4-leaf clover, because they are not the same thing. I mean, there's a difference between 3 and 4. 4-leaf clovers are good luck symbols. True, true, I get that. But the shamrock is the true Irish symbol. I have a little more here I want to show you. A few years ago, I went to New Orleans. I was at St. Patrick's Cemetery, and there's St. Patrick. I made it so you can see he's holding a shamrock in his hand there. And I should have actually, you know what I should have done? I should have made it so you could see at his feet. He's actually standing on a bunch of shamrocks as well as some snakes, since, the whole thing of him driving the snakes out of Ireland. But as far as the symbolism of the shamrock, as the story goes, when he came to Ireland, this is way back in the year 431, so a long time ago, but he used the shamrock as a way to illustrate the Christian idea of the Holy Trinity. And so, shamrocks are common plant, so at any point in time, if he was talking to people, kind of sermonizing, he could just pluck a shamrock from the ground, and then he could explain that even though each leaf of the shamrock is separate, all 3 leaves taken together combine to create a single plant, and in that way they can represent the concept of Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, or, the Holy Trinity. So so now you know the difference between shamrock and 4-leaf clover, in case you were kind of thinking of them as the same thing, as well as a little history. I wanted to point out that the idea of leaves of 3, I know here in Texas when I say leaves of 3, I'm thinking of, usually it means poison ivy and beware, but when you're in a cemetery, when you think of when you see plants, a lot of times they will just have 3 leaves as part of the representation, and that's just another way to remind us again of the Holy Trinity. I got some more of those wonderful photos from David Haben, because he just has so many photos. We share photos a lot. I love cemetery photos. People, it's great when you send them. All right, so, oh, hey, your middle name is Patrick. Ah, well, you got a little Irish ancestry, or were you named after a relative? I wonder the story behind that. You have a St. Patrick's Cathedral here. Oh, I wonder if you have some good statuary in there with a St. Patrick standing on a snake. People forget to look at the feet of saints, I've got to say. Virgin Mary is often shown standing on a snake. St. Michael, a dragon. But I digress. I'm not here to talk about feet. Oh, hey, Francisca's here. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming. All the way from the Netherlands. And Sam, hey, good. I'm glad. I like to share. I like to share a little bit of holiday info all the time. It's good when you're eating your corned beef and cabbage with your relatives. You can find out if they know the difference between a shamrock and a 4-leaf clover. All right, it's time for me to talk about our book of the week. And I made our guest book, Loren Rhoads. I have 199 cemeteries to see before you die. Let me make myself bigger so you can see it. This is the first book I have of hers. It's a really great book. And we will be talking about a lot of the places in here, but by no means all of them. So, go out and buy the book later. It's worth it. I also, because it was my birthday recently, which gave me an excuse to buy books. Any excuse to buy books, I'm really going to take it. I did just get this, and I just started it, so I'm not as far into it. But this is another book by her, Wish You Were Here, Adventures in Cemetery Travel. And by her, of course, I mean Loren Rhoads, who is waiting patiently in our green room here. I will be bringing her on very shortly. Let me see, was that everything I was going to chat about? Yes, indeed. I believe I can introduce her next. Now, Loren, I better explain who she is before I bring her in. She is the author of those 2 books that I was just talking about. And she is also working on a new book of cemetery travel essays called Graveyard Field Trips. So I'm sure at the end of our chat where we'll ask her about that, and maybe we'll even be able to have her on again, you know? You'll see. Everybody be nice, okay? We want her to come back. All right, let me bring Loren in. Hey there, Loren. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
It is
Glad to
so
be here.
Oh, it's so great to have you. And once again, I do appreciate you for being flexible and letting me kind of bump Tombstone Tuesdays ahead to Tombstone
Not a
Wednesday.
problem.
Hey, you have a friend here. I mean, a fan here. Wish you were here is brilliant.
Oh,
Aha.
thanks, Sam.
Well, I'm enjoying it so far. It's one of those things I have to go like, okay, don't inhale the book. Just read it a little at a time. I get excited over new books, you know. All right. So let's bring this up. I think I can share some of the photos. Now, she sent me some photos, and some of them I recognized, and some of them I didn't, and she's going to tell us the stories behind them, and we're going to chit-chat. I will, at the end, be asking for questions. Of course, you can ask as you go along. I'm just not sure if I'll see them. I'll try. I'll definitely be looking towards the end. Now, here is one of the first ones I wanted to start with because I wondered if you're related. I noticed the name.
Yes. That's my my grandfather, grandmother, and my cousin. And this is sort of what led me to cemeteries in the first place. The little gray stone that's behind the plant belongs to the cousin that I'm closest to in age, who died as an infant. And her headstone says, say that she is not dead, she's only sleeping. And as a child, I thought that was just so creepy, you know, that I had maybe a guardian angel who was more or less my age. So this was down the road from the farm I grew up on. And so pretty much everything directly relates.
Farm. Where was that?
In Michigan.
Oh, in Michigan. Oh, yeah. Wow. What kind of things did you grow on the farms?
A little of everything. My dad still has cattle all this time later. But we had rabbits and pigs and chickens and goats and all kinds of stuff when I was growing up.
Well, that's neat. Oh, all right. So this was just down the road from you. Was it? Were there a lot of roads there? A lot of your family members? Or
no. My grandmother's originally from Missouri, and my grandfather was from Oklahoma, and they both came to Michigan to work in the auto industry. And so when they met, they bought a farm that's maybe 2 miles past where the cemetery is. And when my parents married, my dad bought some land from her kind of in between the two. And that's where I grew up. So I grew up down the road from my grandma, which was amazing.
That is, man, that's special. Yeah, my grandparents were all over, so I didn't get to see them too much. All right. Well, I was curious. I was thinking that must be the family. And that's interesting that it was a family headstone that kind of got you interested and you became a taphophile.
Well, you know, it was one of those little graveyards that had a little bit of everything. You know, there was a limestone tree trunk and lambs and angels and cherubs and, you know, just everything you'd hope to see in one tiny little plot of land.
That's very nice. Wade saying, sounds like Motor City.
Yep, outside of Flint.
Oh, all right. Okay, now I love this place. I knew this one. I recognize this one, Egyptian Avenue. Oh my gosh. If anyone's been there, say you have. Tell us about this.
Highgate's probably my favorite cemetery. I mean, it changes a little bit, but I keep coming back to Highgate. That, you know, I grew up on Hammer horror movies, and I think it's Taste the Blood of Dracula is filmed right there at the Egyptian gate. So when I saw it in person,
see that now. I didn't know
my goodness.
That. Oh my
gosh. Well, there's several of the Hammer movies are filmed in Highgate because it was so dilapidated in the late 60s and the early 70s. But you know, I totally got there by accident. My husband and I were planning a trip to Barcelona during the first Gulf War. And as we were flying across the ocean, the U.S. started to bomb Baghdad. So we had been rerouted. We ended up in England where we didn't plan to go ever, or at that point anyway.
Yeah.
And the war was going on. The place we were going in Barcelona had been commandeered by the army.
Oh,
So we
wow.
decided to stay in England where we spoke the language. And, no money, no place to stay, no plans, no itinerary, anything. But we were in the bookshop at Victoria Station, and I found just this gorgeous book of photographs they were all shot in Highgate, and they were talking at the time about the Friends group had rescued the place, and they were changing it up, and they were trying to repair things, and if you wanted to see it in its romantic state, you should go now. And so my husband said he'd rather go see that than the Tower of London. So we ended up at Highgate on this January day, and pretty much had the place to ourselves, and it was spectacular. So I've been back to England a couple of times. I always go back to Highgate. And
I love Highgate.
It's amazing.
And a couple of people, Sam's been there. And for people who don't know, that's it's one of 7 cemeteries that are in a ring around London. They're called the Magnificent Seven, and I think I've been to 4 of them now. But this one is definitely, if you're only going to go to one cool cemetery in London, go to Highgate. It's
spectacular.
So worth it. And someone was asking, let's see here, is that an entrance or is it a mausoleum? And I can show them a picture looking inside. Go ahead.
That's a great question. It is the entrance to a ring of mausoleums. And up until a couple of years ago, there used to be this big cedar tree that grew out of the center, but it's been damaged over the years. They finally took it down.
Yeah, that was sad. Yeah, so here's a picture looking out. So here's like looking in, and then you walk, and then here's a picture I took looking out. And
actually,
one of the things. There we go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is the view looking out of the gate in Highgate.
Yeah. So I didn't even make that connection.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the things I like about it is they had on each of the mausoleums along the way, they have their street address and they tell what they did for their living, which I thought was weird. And they have the locks to them are upside down, which I thought was really
I didn't know that.
That's unusual. Cool. And for quite a while there, the caskets inside Egyptian Avenue would explode from time to time until they realized, we need to light a match to off-gas it for the first 3 weeks. They finally figured that out, but there were a few unpleasant times, I guess, where I can just only imagine how horrific that would have been. And then here's another shot because it's just so pretty. Highgate is really, gosh, everybody, we all need to go. Let's have a field trip.
Let's go.
Yeah, no, you were saying you were there and you had the place to yourself. It was so funny. The day I was there, it was me, my stepdaughter, and a bunch of British bikers. And the funny thing that cracked me up was like they all had skulls on them. Like this is like a thing of skulls. He's got them, and I was like, because there's a lot of skulls on the old headstones too, but it's different. It's not like Mary Jo is trying to be badass by having a skull. She's saying, remember, you will die. It's kind of a memento mori thing. But I just thought it was funny the contrast between the use of skulls. Like they're doing like I'm so tough, and I don't think Mrs. Montgomery Chesingham was trying to be tough. So I was smirking the whole way through because this probably happens to you too. Everyone else was going ahead, but I was falling behind, and then I'd have to run up and catch the bikers again, and anyway, that was my.
Well, when we went a couple of years ago, there was a thunderstorm coming in, and it's way up on the bluff, so you're way up high looking over London.
Yeah.
And this storm was coming at us, and I thought, this is it. This is how I die. I'm going to be standing in a cemetery with an umbrella.
You could do worse. I would like
lightning.
that.
Yeah,
I could handle that. This person said there's lots of films filmed there too. Latest Fantastic Beast was, maybe we need to do a whole show about all the movies that have been filmed in Highgate. I would like to find that out. I want to see them.
Well, the funny thing about Fantastic Beasts is they imply that it's Père Lachaise.
Oh.
because the scene is set in Paris, but it's actually
Oh.
Highgate.
Well, now I know. I can even feel a little
Mhm.
smug while I'm watching it. I know where we actually are. Yeah, it's just tremendous place though.
I don't know. Are you one of those people like me where the movie gets to a cemetery and you have to pause it and like
Oh
look
yeah.
everything
I'm like
over?
I'm like not looking at, oh, they're in a cemetery
Mhm.
now. And I'm like, oh, that's a fake tombstone. Darn. Oh,
Yeah,
no, that's a real
exactly.
place. Where's this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm totally looking. I know my husband
Well, and I'm
knows now.
pulling a still out to say, okay, now where is this? Because
Hmm.
Greenwood shows up in a lot of movies, and so
Oh,
there's always a different view.
yeah. That they're photogenic places, people. I
Mhm.
mean, Hollywood realizes it. We realize it. What can I say? Now, this next one, I think I know where this is, but I'm very curious if you can tell us.
Oh, you know where that is. That's
Yeah,
Grant's tomb.
yeah, that's what I thought. I have not been there. Ah, I need to go. So many places.
I got I got really lucky. Geez, I guess it's been almost 20 years now. Um, I was writing a column at that time for GothicNet,
Uh huh.
and so every month I'd write some travel story about a cemetery I'd visited. And I thought, there are a lot of places, a lot of important places that I haven't seen. So my husband and I rented a car and just drove up and down New England, up to New York, out to Pennsylvania, and kind of filled in the gaps. And one of them I had to
Nice.
see was Grant's tomb. It's the biggest mausoleum in North America. So I mean, you
Yeah.
sort of get a sense with the people there, but it's enormous.
It.
And that was another place that we were there by ourselves. I had to sit outside for a long time and wait for somebody to come and go stand in front of it so I could take the picture.
Wow. Now, are you? How far can you go inside it?
All the way.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, it's basically a big empty building.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with at that point, I don't know if it's changed, but at that point there were museum panels around the inside, and then Grant and his wife are buried down in the crypt. So there's like a
Oh.
opening. You could look over the balustrade and look down, see their
Oh,
coffins.
that's cool. Oh, here, so
Yeah.
let's getting back to our conversation about the cemeteries in film. I'm always trying to work out if it's real.
Oh,
I know,
cool.
me too. And then I'm always trying to pay attention if they're using the word cemetery, like back in the Middle Ages when they should be saying churchyard or something. I'm like, come on,
Hmm.
or whatever. But this one, I don't know, just for fun. But I tried it. Brompton was in the first. Oh, Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, I didn't know that. Okay, next time I see the Sherlock Holmes, I'll look for.
That goes on the list.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we got that is a worthy list. That is a worthy list. I think so. Yeah, old trick question. Who is buried in Grant's tomb? Yeah,
Hmm.
was that Groucho Marx or something he used to say that? Or is that just an old joke? I know I've heard that before as like an old trick question. Yeah. All right. Well, that's on my list. Of course, I had all my travel, my canceled last year, and had this
Hmm.
big epic trip planned up the eastern seaboard, and I was going to see all these great things. But oh well, I've just been doing stuff
They'll
online.
still be there.
They will. Here's another place for the bucket list. Look at this! Wow. Tell us. Tell us.
That's the Capuchin catacombs in Rome, and that was the first day we were in Rome. And still kind of jet lagged and all of that, but we figured this
Wow,
this
jet
should be
lag and
doable.
skulls.
Yeah. And it's an amazing place. They call it a crypt, but it's not actually underground.
Oh, okay.
You go up some steps, and then there's a hallway with these, I think it's 7 chapels. And each of
Wow.
the chapels is decorated in a different way with skulls and bones and stuff like that. They're bones of the monks. When the monks moved from their land outside of Rome into the city, they dug up all their bodies and brought them with them. And it goes back to the medieval belief that when the trumpet sounded, you need to have all your bits. You couldn't
Yeah.
show up for the judgment day without all your bones. And so
Mm-hmm.
when the monks moved, they just brought everybody. And then
Wow.
quite a while later, somebody decided that, we could be decorating with these bones. So the guy on the ceiling is he's death, and he's holding a scythe, and the
Oh
scythe is made
yeah.
of bones, and he's also
Oh.
holding balance. Um,
Oh, scales.
a scale. Thank you. Jeez,
Oh,
words are not my friend today.
I know the
But
feeling.
the cups of the scales are made out of the tops of somebody's skull, and so
Wow.
all of that's ornate, baroque looking decoration. All of those are bones, finger bones, and vertebrae and stuff like that. And
It's so creative. And you think, how did
it's
they do this?
amazing.
Did they just like how I try to wrap my mind up how did this happen? Did they say like Francesco, you are going to in charge you and Barnabas, or I'm making up name, whatever, you're gonna do these things. And then like did they just sit there and like line up all the skulls by like size, and like was there a room just full you would have had to like know all your pieces to plan these out,
Well,
I mean,
that's what I
it's so
wonder is,
creative.
did they have did they sort them all first? Do they
Yeah.
put the ribs here and the pelvis is here and the leg bones, so that then when they were ready to decorate, they just grabbed what they needed.
Yeah.
But one of the rooms farther on down the hallway, it has a winged hourglass, and the
Oh, I
wings in
love
the
that.
hourglass are shoulder blades.
Oh, that
And
makes sense.
it was so creative, but
That's
it was the
clever.
sort of thing that you weren't allowed to take photographs while we
Oh.
were there, so that's why I have the postcard. But
Oh.
um, it was kind of dark, and some of the bodies were kind of dusty and all of that. But everybody we met, all the tourists in the place, had these big smiles on their faces because it was so joyful.
Yeah,
There
bones are
was
cool.
well, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Just to see all of this was really lovely. And morbid, yeah, but it was. What's the difference between a crypt and a catacomb? Well, I don't know. Tui, you may have to answer that
I
one.
don't know. I don't really know. I'm blanking. I think I thought of a catacomb as well. I'm afraid to be wrong. I think crypt could be a lot of things. A catacomb is going to be where there's going to be a lot of bones on display, but a crypt could mean just your tomb. I don't know. That's how I'm taking it.
This is called both, depending on who's talking. A crypt, in this sense, is the basement of the church. It's the cellar of the church where the bones are stored. Catacomb doesn't necessarily mean the bones are bare like that. And I think the sense has changed over time, because there's a catacomb at Cypress Lawn south of me where it's above ground. So, I always assumed
under. Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, and the original catacomb is underground, but that sense has changed over time.
I've got a homework assignment, guys. Okay, this will be my homework. I'll have a better understanding by next week. I don't know. Yeah, it's funny because some words you just use, and I always assumed, I think of crypts as being underground. I think of catacombs as being underground, but then you said this wasn't. So
when I grew up, we referred to like the little family tombs as crypts.
Yeah, I hear that as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not actually correct, but it's in such common usage that that's people understand that to mean family tomb.
Oh, great. Well, I love that. I like that's a good get us thinking.
Yeah.
That's good.
Oh, there's always more to learn, right?
Oh, yeah. Man, that's what it's so much fun stuff out there to learn for sure. All right, now I'm curious where this is. I have a guess, but
that's Mount Auburn.
That's what I was thinking. Oh my gosh, people. America's first garden cemetery. Everybody, we need to have a meeting there. Let's go. I would love to meet there next week.
I was there that same trip as we went to Grant's tomb. And it wasn't quite spring the day I was in Mount Auburn. It was coming, and you could see like the dogwoods and the magnolias were blooming. So spring was on its way. Wow. But even at that, the sculpture and the statuary there are so beautiful, and the place is immense. We drove around. We kept running into the same man.
Too, right? Oh, you kept running into the second. Oh, different. Okay, we'll go back.
That one's actually different. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We kept running into the same guy. There was a Japanese tourist there with his camera, and my husband speaks Japanese, and so we, come around a bend, and he'd wave us down, and we'd pull out our map, and the map of the place is like a poster. It's huge.
Oh, wow.
And we'd find where he was, and then try and head him back toward the entrance. But while we were there, there was a golden eagle in one of the trees, and
Oh,
Mount Auburn
neat.
has a big cult
Hmm.
of bird watchers, and so
Yeah.
they have a board inside the gateway as you come in that tells you what birds have been seen that day. And so
Oh.
everybody was running in this one direction, and so we
Hmm.
followed them to see what they were going to look at, and there was this golden eagle sitting in a tree,
That's
totally
neat.
oblivious to all the people. Yeah, it was
And
super cool.
such a good reminder that cemeteries really are for the living and they are for all the life. We go there to see the life, the trees, the birds, the plants, and then contemplate mortality. But I just,
Yeah.
man, that sounds really neat. That was one of the things that I was going to finally get to see Mount Auburn. Man, well, it's still there. Like you said, it's still there. I'm not
Well,
pouting.
I need to go back because I want to see it in the autumn now,
Oh, that would
when
be
all the
nice
leaves
too.
change.
That's a
Yeah.
point. Yeah, because these are dynamic places. It's not like you go to a museum that's indoors. These are outdoor museums. So
Hmm.
it's going to be influenced. Mother Nature place has such a hand in what you see. So
You
you
know,
go, yeah, go ahead.
the number of graveyards I've been to in the rain.
Oh, that's a good. I love that. It's a nice time because
Hmm.
here in Texas, we get such sharp shadows when the sun is
Oh,
blazing on you. It's really
hmm,
hard to get decent photos. You can't just position the tombstone slightly so you get the.
right.
I bring like something with white to like reflect. It's still hard. So I love it when it's about to rain because suddenly all the shadows have muted. And I'm like, oh, finally I
Mhm.
can get a picture. And plus, it's just moody. It feels all good. So yeah. Anyway, so here Debbie's chiming in on the about crypts. A crypt is under a building, usually a church. Well, that's my homework. I'll look into
Yeah.
that.
I, the year that we went to Rome, we went to the we only had time to go to one of the old Christian catacombs, and the one we went to was Saint Sebastian,
Oh.
and it was called a catacomb first before
Hmm.
people were buried there. It was like a quarry. Now it has a church over it, and that was built in the Middle Ages. But they were there weren't. I can't not talk today. There were definitely not a direct connection between the catacomb and the crypt and the church.
Oh.
They just over time accreted there. So
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well. All right. Now, where is this then? We have another beautiful
isn't that
springtime cemetery.
spectacular? Yeah,
Yes. Oh my goodness.
that's Swan Point
Oh.
in
Okay.
Providence,
Oh.
and it we hit it at the peak of spring. So I mean, there's that, but it is probably the most beautiful cemetery I've ever seen.
And I learned
And
about this one from you. I didn't know about Swan Point. I'm like, well, there's
yeah,
one. Definitely got to see.
well, it's up on the bluff over the river, and Providence used to be a big shipping town, and so a lot of the shipping families that made their money are
Oh,
buried in
yeah. There'd be a
Providence.
lot of money. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
And so
Wow.
there's a ridge where you can stand and look down at the water, and
Mm.
you can see all the shipping owners are buried there keeping an eye
Oh,
on their businesses.
isn't
But
that
this
something?
the weeping cherry was huge, and it smelled so good.
I was just gonna ask, did that smell nice? That
Oh,
oh wow,
so beautiful.
that
And
is.
while we were there, they have a hill that's covered in daffodils. All of those were blooming.
Oh, nice. Oh man, that is really neat. Well, here Robert's chiming in. Oh yes, an ossuary. Well, caves to store bones and catacombs are underground ossuaries. Well, okay, there you go.
Ossuary comes from the word for bones, so that's a
Yeah.
direct connection. But
Well,
catacombs don't always mean underground, which is weird. I mean, it
yeah.
would make sense, and when you look it up, that's what it says. But has a wider usage than that.
Yeah, so a lot of words do. You look in the dictionary and they've got this, but then they've been used elsewhere. Here's someone chiming in and says, what are they saying? I worked with older World War II guys that showed me pictures of the bones of dead saints, very different than our Puritan burial traditions. Unsure if they were brought it actually in there or bought them as souvenirs. Oh my goodness, can you imagine buying a look what I
Well,
got. What,
when during the Middle Ages, when they rediscovered the catacombs in Rome, they they pretty much dug up all the bones that were in there
Mm,
and decided they were saints because they were, early Christians. They must have been saintly,
mm,
and they got shipped all over Europe, and so That's one of the things that just fascinates me when we're
Yeah.
traveling is, here's Montmartre in Paris, and it's got a crypt full of saints' bones, and it's a finger bone from this guy and a collarbone from somebody else, and they're all in these gorgeous reliquaries, with
Yeah.
crystals and gems and all of that. But
Oh, I know. They are
who
very
knows
fancy.
who they really belong to? Yeah.
Hmm. And uncorrupted saints. I finally saw my first uncorrupted saint, and that was just, I
Oh,
was so
that's cool.
fascinated. It was it's just so bizarre. But also,
Where was
we
that?
go that. Where did I see that? I think I saw that in Bari. I saw that in Bari,
Mm-hmm.
Italy. I think it was Saint Caterina. I'm not sure, but I joke that Saint Nicholas follows me around the world because it seemed like we kept running into him everywhere. And then I wrote a book about the Santa Claus bank robbery, and I'm like, what does it mean, Santa? There's something there. Anyway, I don't know. It was just a whole funny thing, but yeah. So the whole town was all around Saint Nicholas, but they had the uncorrupted saint there down in their crypt. I think they called it the crypt. In fact, yeah. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look at those photos. Now people have got me thinking. Oh,
I really want to go to Lourdes someday and see Saint
oh
Bernadette.
yeah, yeah. Uh, and I mean, I'm not. I should, for the record, I was raised Presbyterian, sort of lapsed. My dad one year gave up church for Lent. And so I didn't even know. I reminded him of that when I was an adult, and he goes, "I said that? That's pretty good." So I'm like, "Yeah, you did. I just knew so I can watch cartoons today. I don't have to put on my Sunday shoes." I was like, "What do you mean?" I didn't know what Lent was because we were Presbyterian. So I don't know. Are you Catholic, or were you raised in the church?
No, no, my dad is Southern Baptist and my mother's Presbyterian, and I don't practice anymore. And my husband's Jewish, so I figure we just cover the spectrum.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just fascinated by the stories.
I always, like, when I'd spend the night at a friend's house who was Catholic, I always really enjoyed their church. Plus, you got to kneel and stand. I felt like you didn't just have to sit there the whole time. There's a little more going on. I liked the whole ritual, so I
Mhm.
don't know, but like I am coming at it from a non-Catholic perspective. I just still can appreciate the history and all the beauty. Now, this next one you've got is one of my favorite statues. I'm so glad you had this. Um,
Yeah. Oh, I should have
I've got a few
zoomed
more
in on that.
pictures
Huh?
too. Oh, I've got a few
Oh,
more to
good,
show
good,
too.
good.
So I love it.
Um,
So yeah.
yeah, that was Barcelona was where we were going on that first trip of Europe,
Oh yeah.
and we never got there. And then, decades later, we decided, okay, we're finally going to go. We're finally going to get to Spain. And I got pregnant, and it was a big,
Oh,
complicated ordeal. And I wasn't allowed to travel. So we had to cancel our trip a second time. So we finally decided we're going to go back to Europe. My husband asked, where do you want to go? And I thought, we still have never gotten to Barcelona. And I wanted to see this particular sculpture.
I made a
So,
pilgrimage to it too. Yeah.
we finally got there, but it was so worth it. That
Oh,
that cemetery is just gorgeous.
it's amazing. It is such a neat cemetery, and so I'll show a couple more pictures of this. And
Good.
I
Thank you.
got Barcelona, a wonderful town. I have a little funny story because when I went to Barcelona, I wanted to eat at a tapas place,
Mhm.
Tapas, and I ate really great food, tapas. So when I came back, I was working, and the whole office went out, and I was the new person working in this office, dental office, and they asked me what I'd done on the trip, and I'm like, oh, one of the places we went to was a tapas bar. Suddenly everybody, I'm like, everyone was looking at me like, tell us more. And I'm like, well, they
I see where you're going with this.
what? Yeah, as you can see, I'm like, what else did they have too? I'm like, well, they had olives.
Mhm.
I'm like, what do you want me to tell you? Like, and then finally my boss goes, were they topless? I'm like, what? And so yeah, everyone thought I was saying topless bar. It was pretty funny. So anyway, but yeah, this Kiss of Death. This is just one of the most incredible statues, and I've got a picture of it from behind.
Yes,
We'll see
I was
because
fascinated by that too.
the detail here. It's in Cemetery Poplar. Oh my gosh, it's just his feet, even the feet bones. Here's another photo. I took about, I think we were there just taking pictures of this from every conceivable angle for 45 minutes because I was saying, it took us a while to find it. They pointed us, the people at the cemetery gate pointed us the wrong way, so we were running all over. It was really
Oh,
hot and humid that day. We finally found it. Obviously, took a million photos. And as we were leaving, these two ladies are walking up, and I'm like, hola. And they're like, "Well, hello," and they're I'm like, "Oh," I'm like, "What?" And they were from Texas. It was the funniest thing. Like, what are you doing? So you can meet Texans anywhere, apparently. But I've got another shot of it too. I have to mention that this one, I did put it on the cover of my Ghost Hunters journal because I thought it looked spooky and ghost hunters, might like it. So anyway, but yeah, it is an amazing one, and I don't know the full story behind it. I think he was a tuberculosis.
It's kind of unclear, and there's also, I'm having trouble sorting out, the guy who designed the sculpture is not the one who carved it, and so it's signed, but I'm not sure which of those guys is the one that signed the work. So,
Okay.
but he was a young man, and his parents chose this to go on his grave, which I find really interesting, that this is the thing that you want to encounter every time you visit your child's graves.
I know. Isn't that something? This sort of skitters along the edge of the macabre. Yeah, it really does.
A little bit, yeah.
It does, yeah. It's very dramatic. I mean, there are a lot of cool. I mean, this isn't the only cool piece of statuary in that cemetery. I highly recommend that one. It's really great. Oh, someone else is weighing in on the whole. We have the catacomb. Boy, we really opened a can here.
It really is. Well, see, the Saint Sebastian catacomb,
so we can see you,
is where the word comes from, and it's I believe it translates to the low place or something like that.
All right. That's definitely my homework.
It's basically tufa.
Oh yeah, the tufa. They have a lot of that in Italy.
Yeah, so they dug under the church, I don't know how many years ago, in the 50s, I believe, and found Roman tombs. So Romans were buried there first, then the Christians started to be buried there, and the word predates people being buried in the space. So it's just one of those things where, I find the way words change really fascinating.
I do too. Words in general, I guess we're both word nerds. We both like words, obviously. Yeah. Well, I have a question here on this one. You added. I like this one. I don't even know where this is, though. Oh, look. People already want you back. Well, everybody, like
I haven't left yet.
Be nice. Make me look good, everybody. Be nice. Share this. Maybe she will come back. Buy her books, of course. I know some of you already have them, but she has other ones, and she's one on the way that we're going to talk about soon, too. So, yay. Well, that's nice. I'm glad it's going over so well. Now, I wanted to ask about this one.
Oh, this, yes. Everybody knows who Wyatt. Yeah, everybody knows who Wyatt Earp is, right? From the OK Corral.
Sure.
I didn't realize that he lived into the 20th century, and had a whole life after the OK Corral. But while he was a lawman, he married Josephine Marcus, who was let's say a lady with lots of friends. Let's put it that way.
Oh, okay.
Well connected, yes. And he worked in Hollywood. He did a lot of different things before he ended up in Northern California. So this is in Home of Peace Cemetery in Colma, which is just south of San Francisco. Yeah. And for people who aren't cemetery nerds, or those of you who are, Colma has 17 cemeteries and over 1 million dead people. There are only 1,000 or so live people in Colma.
Wow.
And it was created, maybe is the way to put it, as the place where San Francisco buries its dead, because during the early years of the 20th century, the city fathers decided that San Francisco is a peninsula. It's surrounded by the ocean and the bay, so there's no room for it to expand. And there were 4 huge cemeteries in the heart of San Francisco, and the city fathers decided that what they do is they just dig all that land up and turn it into housing and hospitals and schools and stuff like that. So all of those dead were picked up and shifted down the
How were they
peninsula of
very
Oklahoma.
careful about it, or was it one of those cases where they just
In some
scooped them up?
cases.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2-3 years ago now, somebody was digging in their backyard and they found a little iron coffin. And
Oh, yeah.
there are pretty much every time San Francisco does a civic project, either for one of the museums or the main branch of the library or the Asian Art Museum or whatever, they find bodies because, even though San Francisco is not a very old town compared to Boston, right, or New York City, they've forgotten where the cemeteries were, and people were just not careful. And
People
so,
did not keep good records in a lot of cemeteries,
no.
unless it was, yeah, that's been shocking to me. I mean, yeah, I've heard a lot
Well,
of horror
in
tales.
San Francisco, a lot of the records were kept at City Hall, which burned down in the 1906
Oh,
earthquake. And so,
yeah.
okay, we cut them some slack for that,
Yeah.
but some of it too. 2 years ago, they were digging up Dolores Park, it's the big park. It's on a hill between the Castro neighborhood and the Mission neighborhood. And up until the 1880s, it was where the Jewish cemeteries were.
Oh.
So they dug this all up and they did not find a bone. They did not find a headstone. They did not find a coffin fragment. They didn't find anything because the Jewish community was super careful about picking up all their dead and moving them.
Wow.
Which is not true for the
That
other.
is rare.
Yeah, for the other cemeteries that they're still finding people that they've missed. So, so the interesting story about this Wyatt Earp headstone is this is the fourth one that I'm aware of because they've been stolen over the years.
Oh, bummer.
So this one is huge. It's probably maybe 4 feet tall, something like that. It's solid granite. It is heavy and nailed in there, and it is not going anywhere. So, but the day I was there, people leave playing cards, they leave bullets and money,
that's
and
neat.
all kinds of offerings for Wyatt
Great
Earp.
goods.
Yeah.
Those are fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone
He wasn't himself Jewish, but Josephine was, and so
Oh.
she got him moved into the Jewish cemetery.
Wow, that is really interesting. That's really cool. Now, someone here says they just did a short in YouTube. Okay, everybody, later, not now. Go check out Wade's channel and check out his Tombstone thing. And there is Doc Holiday soda. Never heard of it, but that sounds like I would want to try it. I'd give that I'd probably have a Wyatt Earp after that. Let's see here. Okay, now I've got the photo that I wanted you to show and tell. I asked her to bring something for show and tell, and she did. This is she's gonna. Oops, how we met. That should be on there. Let me delete that. Ta-da! All right.
So this is one of the things that fascinates me now is sort of the future of death, since graveyards are getting filled and fewer people are being buried these days. I can kind of see an end to cemeteries. So there are all these new technologies for disposing of bodies, and while I understand the environmental benefit of that, I still feel like there needs to be a way to commemorate our dead. The stones in cemeteries now give us a way to learn about people that we never would have encountered otherwise, right?
Yeah.
So on a personal level, this is a paperweight. I'll hold it up because it's really little.
I'll bring it up here too.
It's not very big.
Oh, wow.
This is my cat that I had, my first cat when I left home. He was kind of my muse, and I had him for 17 years.
Aww.
And when he died, I had him cremated, and I still have his ashes in a sugar bowl on my dresser. But I wanted a way to remember him. And he used to like to sit on my desk. And so I thought, what I need is a paperweight. So It has his ashes scattered in it, and the whole process was really interesting. You can see it's like not much bigger than a quarter. Um,
Yeah, that's so pretty though. It's like a
yeah,
universe or like Starry Night. It reminds me of like Van Gogh's Starry Night. That's so pretty.
yeah, and I see it and I think of him, and it makes me smile. And so, there are all these different ways now that people can incorporate ashes, whether into a painting or there's a place that'll take them and press them into vinyl and put music on it. So if your
Oh wow.
loved one was a musician, you can have a record of one of their songs. And I find that all really fascinating. I haven't
I think that's
finished
really interesting.
gathering
I think
thoughts.
this is
Yeah.
so pretty. Yeah. And oh, JR's here. Hi, JR. Thanks for coming. Another Texan down south, down San Antonio way. And we are a bunch of cat lovers around here. It
That's
would
true.
seem. Yeah, we do steer the conversation to cats a lot around here. It does seem to. It's up there. Graveyards, cats, cheese, tea, kind of recurring themes,
Oh yeah.
bones. All the good things in life. We get it. Yeah. Wow. I just thought that was so neat. Now, everybody, I know it's, oh my gosh, we're pulling up at the top of the hour. Time flies, as we all know. Now, I'm gonna, if you have any questions, start typing them up. Let me know. I'll scroll back through. I just want to tell you a few things, and while you're typing here she goes, oh, it's beautiful. I'd love to learn how to add ashes to my jewelry. Oh, I bet that would be really cool, Sam. Yeah, that would be neat. It'd be neat to have like a charm necklace or charm bracelet thing. I don't know. I would wear it. I mean, modern memento mori jewelry. And now I should also tell you that next week's guest is going to be Mitchell Whitington, and we're going to talk about Southern funeral customs. He lives over in Jefferson, Texas, which is actually the town where Steven Spielberg had such a scary ghost sighting that he left his hotel in the middle of the night, and his next movie happened to be Poltergeist. Makes you think. But I just mentioned that because Mitch also, besides being interested in funerals, customs, and history, he lives in what has been called by some the most haunted house in Texas. I mean, I don't know. Arguably, how do you quantify hauntedness? But still, it's a cool place. So that will be a fun show. I hope you'll tune back into that. And let's see here. Someone's saying, have you seen any other macabre-like cemetery art like Kiss of Death? Here's a question for you.
I like those. Yeah, I will kind of go out of my way. Probably the one I've seen most recently was Grief, which is at the Rock Creek Cemetery outside of Washington, D.C. She's a bigger than life brass sculpture with a hood over her head.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just slumped down. It commemorates a woman who was a suicide.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's really beautiful.
I think I've seen that one. It's very haunting. It is one of those,
Yeah.
you know how sometimes you see, one thing that exploring cemeteries has made me aware of is like, oh, apparently I really like statues, but I didn't know it. But some of them, like that one, the Grief, then the hooded, you just find yourself staring at it. I've never seen it in person. I've just like, the photo comes up and I'm like, and it's so evocative. I think you can really, yeah.
There's a death in Florence in the English cemetery, which is, larger than life, standing up. He's got a blindfold on, and he's holding a scythe, and he's up on this big plinth, and he's just amazing. And it's another story like the one in The Kiss of Death, where it's somebody's son that is being commemorated. So yeah, there has surprised me that there were fewer deaths around than you expect, but I think the Italians have the lock on it. So
yeah, they're pretty dramatic in general. Wow. Okay, now I'm looking through here. Let's see. Oh, look at this. Some tattoo artists use ashes in portraits. Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, I have a friend who has a tattoo with ashes in it. Unfortunately, unless you kind of mortar and pestle the ashes, they can be kind of big pieces. We think of them as ashes, but they're not really. They're bone fragments. Pretty much anything that
Yeah.
would have turned to ash has burned away and is gone. So what you've got left are just bones. And unless you grind them up very small, they don't tend to stay in the tattoos very well. So
Ah.
your body eventually will push that out.
That was like the experience I had. My friend, unbeknownst to me, had like I was moving into a new apartment, and I'm unpacking my kitchen stuff, and I find this thing, and it's this really heavy duty yogurt container, and I'm like, I've never bought this brand of yogurt. And I open it up and I'm like, what's this powder in here? I'm
Oh
poking it with
no.
my fingers. I'm just like, I'm like, wow, I'm really. Just then the phone rings and my friend's like, Tui, like, oh, I forgot to tell you, I gave some of our friend Max's ashes. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, you mean the stuff I'm like poking with my finger and
Mhm.
yeah, so but
Luckily, you didn't taste it.
I was on the verge, but it was like, I don't know. And yeah, I didn't, but we were laughing so hard because our friend had the guy who had his ashes, that was just the sort of thing he would have found hilarious. So we were like, he's just laughing upstairs at us. Now we have, what is the strangest experience you have
Oh my
had in the
goodness.
cemetery? Mm.
I was in Rose Hill Cemetery outside of Chicago,
Oh.
and it was creepy. I had heard a bunch of ghost stories going in, so I was kind of primed for a ghost story. And things kept happening. We walked up to the chapel, and we were looking in the windows, and this cardinal flew up from underneath the chapel. You know, what the bird was doing there in the first place, I don't know, but it startled me, and it was bright red, and so I was all freaked out. And then we started to hear sirens, and all around the cemetery there were these, emergency vehicles running all
Oh.
over, and there was a huge fire, and it smelled like barbecue.
Oh
So
no.
I don't know what happened. I've never been able to pinpoint, the fire and what happened with that,
Mm.
but I was freaked out. I was like, okay. I was like looking for ghosts, not seeing any ghosts, but
Mm-hmm.
this is too
Y-
much
y-
reality for
your
me.
your barbecue comment reminded me, like, I'm in Texas, so I the smell of barbecue wafts through the air randomly here a lot more than
Yeah.
anywhere else I've lived. I was working at my husband's boat shop, and it was a really hot day, and I just got back from lunch, and some of the guys were coming in and cooling off in my little. It was only 95 in my office because I had air. Yeah, I was dying, and they opened the door, and I'm like, wow, guys, sure smells like barbecue. Why does it smell so good? And they were all like, huh, are you joking? I'm like, no, come on. They're like, yeah. Then they explained to me that they were the people across the way. They had just installed an animal crematorium, and I was smelling them cremating a horse. And then
Oh
nobody wanted.
no.
Nobody. It was like the elephant in the room. No one wanted to admit that it smells like barbecue. And we were all, of
Hmm.
course, I was the one going off about it. No one. So finally, and I felt like, okay, well, yeah. That place did not last long, thank goodness, because I don't know how long I could have
Yeah.
handled that. We had someone saying, "Wow, a scattering of ashes and heirloom jewelry for grand family." Well, it'd be kind of cool. I mean, I don't know. Is that already a market with products beyond paperweights?
Well, this place that makes the paperweights does. I think they call them sun catchers, but they're big, big enough to like hang in your window. But they also do earrings and necklaces and things like that too. So, yeah, there are heirloom jewelry with ashes in them.
Wow, that is really something. Oh, Wade's putting out a synchronicity. Whenever Wade shows up, we always
Oh.
have to have a synchronicity, or he hasn't. If he doesn't, I'm disappointed if there isn't one, which there always is. So I'm never disappointed. All right. I hope I didn't miss anybody's questions. If you got any more questions, we can't keep long. I've already kept over time. All right. Well, I really want to thank everyone for coming. Thanks for everyone who might be watching this in the future as a replay as well. And now, if you enjoyed today's show, I want to say, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. You know what? I have a question, though, for you before we go. I want to know. Hey, pick me. I have a question. Yeah, I'm ignoring myself. I actually want to know about your Graveyard Field Trips book, if you don't mind, before you go. And
Oh,
then,
thank
then
you.
I'll let you go
Oh,
because I really want to know about this one.
um, well, Wish You Were Here is a book of cemetery travel essays. Yeah, thank you for that.
Loving
Um,
it, loving it.
uh, A lot of those are from my column when I was writing for GothicNet. And since
Oh,
then, I pretty much will write a cemetery essay for anybody who asks me, So I have a
yeah.
bunch of these uncollected essays. And so I sat down this morning and I was starting to pull things together. And, I have there's a story about Christ Church in Philadelphia. And then I got this story about Two Rocks Presbyterian Cemetery in California, and different things. And so I'm thinking about, I don't know yet if it's going to be just cemeteries that I've been to that have a good story involved, or
Hmm.
if it's going to be cemeteries I dragged some unwitting friend to.
Yeah,
Because
so it's
pretty
still
much if you know
settling, huh?
me,
Mhm.
Right, eventually you'll end up in a cemetery with me.
I've
That's just
been that
the way I
person
live my
as
life.
well,
Mhm.
dragging people to cemeteries. And so it's kind of now all the family members, when they call, where you at? Oh, let me guess, a cemetery. Or Larry will
Mhm,
pick up the
mhm.
phone to his friends. Well, yeah, Tui's got me in another cemetery. And yeah, but heck.
Well, you travel, right? Why
Mhm.
waste the time? You might as well check out a cemetery while you're there. So, yeah, everybody knows that eventually I'm going to drag them to cemeteries.
Awesome.
We went to Singapore a couple of years ago
Oh,
to stay
yeah.
with some friends who were stationed there. And
Hmm.
they were kind enough to say, well, would you like to see a cemetery while you're here? And yes, actually, yes, I would. So we dragged their kids and my kid, and um, the girls were all cranky because it was super hot. So I
Yeah.
said, go sit on this shadowy, there was like a staircase up the side of the cemetery.
Mhm.
Go sit over there in the shade and I'll get you when I'm done. And about halfway through the adventure, they came marching across the green to me and they said, there was a scorpion there. And
Yikes.
yeah, so, they're not deadly scorpions in Singapore. And, we have scorpions in California, but the girls were all freaked out about, we could have died. And, it's my daughter's favorite cemetery story now,
Oh,
that
that's
my mom
funny.
dragged me to this cemetery and I could have died.
Fun. It's
So,
fun to hear those same story, the same family story told by different family members. Like I
yeah.
make Larry's brothers recant or retell stories that I've heard. I like to hear their side of the story because he's a
Mm-hmm.
mad scientist who is quite often electrocuting his brothers. I like to hear their story of how what that was like, which is kind of fun. So people, nice show, ladies. He says, "Well, thank you, Wade." Francisca.
Oh, thank you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, everybody. Now, if you're enjoying the show, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment or something. And if you didn't like the show, I mean, what are you doing here? There are other options, right? So, and I really, really want to thank you again, Loren, for coming. This was wonderful. I'm
Oh, this was
excited
fun.
about your new book. So, I mean, maybe we can have you on as that progresses, or people already want you back. I want you back. So, hopefully, we can have you
Oh, I
again.
would love that.
That would be great. All right. So take care, everyone. Oh, here's one last question. Have you ever visited cemeteries in
I
Romania?
have not. That's a place that I would love to go. I want to do the Dracula tour one of these
Oh,
days
me
because
too.
I I grew up reading Dracula. That's the book that's I've read more than anything else. So
Yeah.
if nothing else, I want to see the Mary Cemetery, and
Oh,
I
yeah. I want
want
to
to
see
see the
that too.
place where Dracula is supposed to be buried. So
Yep, that's up there too. So many cemeteries, so little time.
exactly, and we need to be able to travel again. So
Yeah. Well, we will eventually.
yeah,
So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much. And especially super duper thank you to you, Loren. We'll see you guys again, I'm sure. And I hope if you stick around this long, you're probably going to come back, I hope. So thanks so much, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
thank you.